Chief Investigative Correspondent Armin Katayan has done a lot of stories about American civilians working in Iraq and the dangers they face there. He's here now with more about that. Armin?
A lot of dangers, Katie. You know, tens of thousands of civilians are deployed in Iraq, providing logistical support to the troops. Most are motivated by patriotism and the hefty pay. But as we have seen over and over, the danger is great and the toll is high. Crisscrossing Iraq, they are tempting targets for attack. The hundreds of civilian truck drivers who form a shadow army, hauling food and supplies to military bases.
All my stuff's out of here.
Ohio truck driver Robert Rowe, a former Marine, was shot while leading a convoy into Baghdad.
We got hit from both sides and on top of a bridge. And then a round come through and tagged me in the leg.
That's my truck after the last ambush I went through.
Cindy Morgan was Robert Rowe's convoy commander. A rare female truck driver in Iraq, she's written a book about working in a war zone.
We live, we eat, we sleep pretty much side by side with our troops. And we get shot at, we bleed, and we die beside them.
Since the war began, more than 600 civilians employed by American companies have been killed. More than 7,000 injured. At 80 grand or more a year, they're some of the best paid truck drivers in the world. But for some, even that big a reward doesn't justify the risk.
A lot of them are like I am. There's not enough money to go play Russian roulette with your life.
West Virginia truck driver Brian Rawl found his life on the line while driving a fuel tanker at night.
I heard a pop and a glass crackling, and then it felt like a 50-pound sledgehammer hit me upside the head.
Somehow he maintained control of his truck even after taking a sniper's bullet in the head.
I feel a headache starting, feels like a steel band being tightened around the base of your skull.
Many of America's shadow soldiers find themselves suffering, but still proud of their decision to back our troops in Iraq.
It gave you a sense of pride. And if I could help out again, I'd do it too. I'd do it in a heartbeat.
And many of these civilian contractors told us they fight a new battle when they come home. They have a difficult time collecting health benefits and workers' compensation for their physical and emotional injuries, Katie.
Armin, thank you so much. Meanwhile, no surprise, President
For civilian contract workers in Iraq, the often generous pay has to be weighed against the risks. So far, nearly 8,000 civilians working for American companies have been injured, many by enemy fire. Almost 700 have been killed. As CBS News Chief Investigative Correspondent Armin Katayan reports, many injured civilians find themselves fighting a new battle once they come home.
It was a few days before Christmas in Mosul, Iraq, 2004. Sam Walker sat down for lunch in a military tent. A suicide bomber just steps away.
And next thing you know, there's a bright explosion coming, a bright light coming toward me. I think I'm picked up and thrown over the table.
22 people were dead.
The blast tore up the bodies, and you see all the blood and all that stuff. That's, whew.
It was pure horror for Walker, who had come to Iraq to run a private recreational facility for soldiers. After the Mosul bombing, he went home to Georgia and was deserted, he says, by the company that hired him, Kellogg, Brown & Root. And you're saying KBR in no way reached out to you to say?
Not whatsoever, you know. And as of today, I don't think anyone has called and asked, how are you doing, or, you know, is everything okay?
But everything was not okay. Suffering from nightmares and flashbacks, Walker was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. His request for workers' compensation passed from KBR to its insurer, AIG. What happens with AIG when it becomes clear you're suffering from PTSD?
They deny all claims.
Where were you based out of?
Anaconda.
As it turns out, Sam Walker is far from alone. Witness this recent gathering of civilian contractors in Nashville. In this Music City hotel, it was the same sad song. David Meredith, a truck driver from Kansas diagnosed with PTSD, was in a supply convoy heading to a military base when a roadside bomb took out one of the trucks and the driver inside.
His windshield was blown out and laying in the middle of the street. I climbed up the passenger side of the truck ready to pull him out. There was nothing left of him. Nothing at all.
AIG says it has no incentive to deny claims because the federal government reimburses all awards paid to private contractors wounded in attacks. Nevertheless, some plaintiffs' attorneys charge the insurer drags its feet on certain claims that should be paid right away. AIG would not discuss individual claims, but a company spokesman said the insurer pays more than 90% of workers' comp claims from Iraq when appropriate documentation is received. The same rate paid on U.S. claims.
It's just superficial injury.
Sam Walker's injury claim was paid 19 months after the Mosul bombing, but only after his lawyer filed a complaint with the Labor Department. Meanwhile, dozens of men like David Meredith are running out of hope.
KBR is pretty much disposed of me. You knew what you were getting into when you went over there. Deal with it.
A KBR spokeswoman told CBS News that every potential employee receives very specific warnings about the dangers of working in a war zone. The company has seen more than 50 employees killed and 3,500 injured in Iraq. Armin Katayan, CBS News, New York.